Hello, hi, and welcome or welcome back to the Strategic Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Blue, and I'm a business astrologer here to help you use astrology so that you can start, grow, and scale your online business. In this episode, I'm going to be breaking down how to shift and adjust your marketing to be more sustainable for you no matter what changes happen to the algorithm and to different platforms. So the inspiration for this episode is actually coming from the TikTok ban. Now, at the time of this recording, TikTok is scheduled to no longer be a thing as of January 19th. Of course, you're listening to this in the future, so you already know what's going to happen. But for me right now, as things are stated, it's scheduled to be deleted. Since 2020, people have been really utilizing the platform for their own benefit. People have used TikTok to start their own businesses, to create more income and more revenue for their lives, to support their families. They've been able to live what we've been sold to as the American dream through this platform. And that is going away with the potential of this ban. So rightfully so, people are freaking out, especially those who have never had any formal business experience prior to starting their TikTok accounts. And what I find really fascinating about this conversation has really been around sustainability, which I don't see as many people talking about. And you already know, if you've been listening to this podcast, that sustainable marketing is completely my jam. It's part of the reason why, as a business astrologer, I really focus on the importance of making astrology work for you by making things in your business easier. What I love about business astrology is that it takes the guesswork out of where you should be and what makes sense for you to focus on. Your astrology chart is your guiding map. It's the place that is going to really focus in on what is going to be the easiest path for your vision and version of success. So whether or not TikTok actually gets banned is beyond the scope of what I want to explore with this episode, but rather I want to use this as a catalyst for you to really understand how important it is to be investing in the longevity of your business. So using the astrology of 2025, I really want to look at how this can be used as a guiding point to better plan out what your marketing strategies for your specific business can look like moving forward in 2025 and beyond. The most important thing to know when it comes to sustainably marketing in 2025 and beyond using astrology is that it is so important for you to invest in platforms that are going to be rooted in longevity and sustainability for your business. Now, I am not completely anti short form content or social media platforms. They can be incredibly helpful for your business. But I think when it comes to the conversation of building the foundation of your business, building the pieces of content that is going to stand the test of time, it can't start on social media. It can't start on these volatile platforms that are not built to stand the test of time. They're built for virality. They're built for reaching the masses. They're built for the right now rather than a future. So when it comes to creating a sustainable marketing strategy, it really has to begin with the centralized long-form platform that you are going to build the basis of your marketing foundation, and then everything else kind of branches off from there. So rather than creating for social media first, can you create for your blog, for your YouTube, for your podcast first, and then use social media as a means to share it out to a wider audience, but leading them back to where that centralized information is. And then, of course, there's the question of, is social media even needed and necessary? As we're moving into 2025 and beyond, is going to become an even bigger question that is going to be asked. The reality is a lot of businesses don't need social media. Like, yes, it is an incredible tool to use if the goal for your business is to reach a larger audience or to reach a more global audience. But it's becoming really apparent that these systems and these platforms are really volatile. And as they become even more uncertain, people are going to become more decentralized. No longer is it guarantee that you're going to be able to reach your audience just by being on Instagram or TikTok or even Facebook. Instead, there's this new wave of platforms that are going to be able to take those spaces as people become even more dismayed and overall just like over these long-standing platforms. We're already beginning to see this with the TikTok ban. There's been the pop-up of so many decentralized websites that are coming in, and they're attempting to fill the void that TikTok and Instagram and Facebook are leaving for the market. But even with that, it's becoming even clearer that there isn't just one place to find your audience. So with that being said, it is going to be really important for you to answer the question of what role does social media play in your marketing? Is it as important in your business as you've been led to believe? And is it truly necessary in order for you to achieve your business goals? You may be surprised by the answer because a lot of times it's not as needed or necessary as we've been led to believe. So with that, I want to talk about some marketing strategies that the astrology of 2025 has truly inspired that I think will become really prominent as the year goes on. And if you want an even deeper dive into what the astrology of 2025 actually looks like, I do recommend that you check out that podcast episode that I have done previously, breaking down the major transits and things to look forward to throughout 2025 astrologically. But the main theme that I've noticed when it comes to marketing strategies that I think are really going to gain traction across in 2025 is this return to guerrilla marketing. So like I've been saying, there's really this pull away from the centralized conglomerate places. Instagram, Facebook, Meta in general, people are making a mass exodus off of these platforms and they're creating their own thing. They're moving to their own platforms. They're essentially moving to decentralized sites, which is the first marketing strategy that you may be considering to incorporate into your business. Now, these decentralized sites can be these lesser known social media platforms or these emerging platforms that are really banking on the promise that they're going to fill the void that a lot of these apps are leaning into. They're going to move away from this practice of scraping your personal data and surveilling you at all times, instead moving back to the social media sites of yonder when the internet was still relatively new and fresh and exciting and is really there to be community focused and oriented. But there's also space for decentralized sites to be quite literally your own platforms, like your own website, your own non-social media site that houses the entirety of your creator ecosystem. It is your own website where you host your own videos, you host your own blog posts, you host your own content pieces in one centralized space that exists in its own bubble on the internet rather than being reliant on an existing social media platform. And yes, I know that not everyone is super tech savvy or willing to make that change, but I think with the question being raised of how relevant and needed and necessary social media is, it's becoming even more important now more than ever to have your own independent existing platform on the internet that exists outside of social media. Now, I see this come up a lot, especially when I talk about things like blogging, for example. People are always like, okay, but what about Substack? Or even with video, what about YouTube? The reality is that Substack and YouTube and corresponding platforms that are not quite social media, I would argue that they're social media light because they're not quite like Instagram or Facebook, but they're also not like your own self-hosted WordPress or Squarespace site. They exist in this in-between space, but I would argue that this is still an extension of social media. Perhaps it is more aligned with the vision of social media that you would like to incorporate for your business, but it's still social media in the sense that you do not own these platforms. You are not the owner of YouTube. You are not the owner of Substack. So instead, when it comes to utilizing decentralized sites, incorporating a mixture of the two, perhaps still having your own website where you are housing and owning that traffic and you are sending people to as a first touch point to really get the meat and potatoes of who you are and what it is that you're here to support them with your business. But on top of that, utilizing these platforms that are outside of traditional social media can still be a way for you to build that community and utilize these algorithms for your benefit in order to, again, lead people back to the core place where your work actually exists. The whole point of this is not to move from an all-in with social media to a cold turkey version of we're not using social media anymore. But instead, it's really about getting clear and intentional about the ways that social media works for you and your business as a secondary or a tertiary point rather than the main focus and the driving force of having your business run and exist in the first place. So the second marketing strategy that I think is really going to extend and take off in 2025 is not really a trend in and of itself. It's been here for a long time, but it's going to get even more traction. And that is the return of long form content. So if you're going to have any kind of content be the foundation of your business, let it be long form content. Okay. I'm talking about blogs. I'm talking about video. I'm talking about audio. I'm talking about a return to one piece of content where you can dive deep into the totality and the fullness of one idea rather than base it off of multiple snippets that are contained within like 2 or 3 minutes or less. What I love about long form content is that it is such a way to really get to know someone and the ethos of their work and what they stand for and their values and truly how they can help you. This podcast is such a great example of this because you're essentially listening to me yap in my room about business astrology for 30 plus minutes at a time. It is where you can return to and hear me explain the entirety of my thoughts around one topic rather than relying on clips from this podcast to give you that same idea. And really, there isn't a way for me to create the same kind of experience in a 30-second clip. Like, that would be impossible. Or even a minute, 2 minute, even 3-minute clip is not enough time for me to really delve into this. So long form content really fills in this void that social media is leaving for a lot of people, especially in 2025, as there is this massive seeking of like-minded community, of leaving behind the imperfect structures that don't really fulfill the needs of the people. Instead, we're going to be looking for community in different ways. Again, that mass exodus is a massive theme that is happening, especially looking at the transits of the outer planets. Long form content fills a need for those of us who really value intimacy. We want to spend a lot of time with our favorite creators, with our favorite business owners, and really get to know them, especially when it comes to this idea of I want to invest in working with a service provider for my business. Like, I'm not necessarily going to sign up for like long-term coaching or consulting with somebody that I've only consumed a 30-second like reel from. Instead, I want to be able to dive deep into everything that they have in their ecosystem. I want to read all of their blogs. I want to dive into their podcast episodes where they're explaining their process, where they're sharing how they've worked with people, where they're literally showing their work. If you remember in grade school, learning about that in math class, right? Literally showing how you got to the answer. That is what long form content is here to really support you with doing. The important thing with long form content is to choose the platform that is going to work best for you. So I talked a lot about this in my podcast episode where I dived into how to find your primary content type, which I highly recommend that you listen to or revisit after this episode if you really want to understand how to make long form content that works for your business. But what I will say with this is that long form content works best when you find the one type that is your primary content type that works best for how you are designed to share information. And I've seen this a lot with the conversation of where do we go outside of TikTok? Everybody is running to YouTube, it may seem, and rightfully so. I mean, video content is a really great way to foster that intimacy and to really make that connection with people in real time. However, it's not the only type of content that you can create if you want to make long form content. Writing is still like one of the most consumed ways to consume information and media, and it is highly converting. So blogging, writing for your email list, using writing centered decentralized sites as your marketing strategy is still a really effective way to grow and scale your business. And if writing is what comes easiest and most natural to you, then by all means, go all in on that. If creating video content where you're not just speaking into a mic, but you're also like looking into the camera and allowing people to have a really dynamic storytelling experience, then by all means, go all in with video. But if turning on the mic and quite literally talking to yourself in a room with the camera off is how you are best able to communicate and speak and share these wonderful ideas of how you are best designed to support and help people, then audio and going the podcast route and even guesting on other people's podcasts is going to be the best route for you. Again, this is so individualized, and I highly recommend that you dive into looking into your own astrology in order to get support around this and figuring out what long form content should you be focused and prioritize creating, and also what is going to be your primary content type to create your full marketing strategy around in the long term. If you haven't already figured that out, then 2025 is definitely going to be the year where you're going to almost be forced to make that decision, because the choices of where to create on volatile, short-term, shelf-life platforms is definitely ending. The final marketing strategy that I want to talk about that I think is really going to gain traction based on the 2025 astrology is going to be community-based socializing. So this is quite interesting because community-based socializing goes hand in hand with decentralized sites. Again, there's really this theme throughout the major transits that speak to leaving behind systems and structures that no longer work for us, and instead really embracing the options that we do have that are in line with our values. And that can mean making really difficult decisions on leaving behind things that we have known, things that are in our comfort zones. But instead of just seeing it as an end all be all of things that are in our comfort zone, it can be a really great expansion in getting back to connecting with like-minded people. So this is going to be really exciting, especially if you have an 11th house midheaven, for example, or you have prominent 11th house placements, because the 11th house especially speaks to these themes of communities and networks, and not community and networks like the 7th house, which is more building on a one-on-one basis. The 11th house is bringing together these disparate groups, perhaps of people that you have gotten to know across a period of time and having them exist in one space. It also speaks to the hopes and the dreams and the fulfillment and the wishes of what you would like to see in the future come into fruition, and really bring people together around a shared idea, a shared mission, a shared vision. That's why folks that have an 11th house midheaven are best suited to be curators and the organizers, rather than being the ones that are teaching or leading with their expertise, like folks that have their midheaven in the 9th and the 10th house, respectively. So community-based socializing even extends your marketing strategies as a business owner beyond social media and the internet at large. The 11th house also speaks to the internet, so it's still going to be a prominent theme. And it is something that I focus on with this podcast and with my own work because I have an online business. But with the breaking down and the mass exodus from these existing platforms, it really is creating this opportunity for people to go back and embrace old school offline methods of marketing if it's relevant for you. I think this is super cool because folks that have local businesses that have been really thriving with tools, you're able to go back to that. You're able to go back and continue to embrace working with people in real time to literally like touch someone in the real world rather than relying on the internet to foster and build those community connections over time. So yeah, there's a lot of space for community-based socializing to take the role or to fill in the gap that social media and traditional social media has been doing for a very long time. Now, no matter what marketing strategy you choose to adapt within your business in 2025 and beyond, I really want to bring home the fact that you have to base your marketing strategies based on your individual needs. Gone are the days where we're just following trends just for the sake of following them. It is really coming down to what is going to work for you as an individual in order for you to be able to do your best work. So when it comes to choosing the platforms that you're building the foundation of your business on, please choose that intentionally. Don't just hop to another social media platform just because you see your favorite creator talking about it. Instead, if you are feeling that fatigue and you really want to move away from social media, begin to prioritize a secondary social media platform like YouTube or Substack, a place that is decentralized away from traditional social media sites, but is still in that nice in-between space from having your own website and also being a traditional marketing site. Prioritize making long-form content that is going to stand the test of time over days, months, even years on and off these platforms, no matter what platform specifically you choose to be on. And really, that's the thing too. It doesn't matter what platform you choose to be on. It could be an existing platform. It could be a platform that emerges in the future. It really doesn't matter. The quality of your work and your ability to communicate the effectiveness of what it is that you do and how you are here to help people is the thing that matters, and bringing that value to your audience. So with all that, I would love to know what marketing strategies you're going to be adapting for your business in 2025 and beyond. Feel free to let me know. I can't wait to chat with you in the next episode, and I'll see you then. Bye.